Hello, I'm Melissa Sorolla, Senior Director of Corporate Communications and Marketing at CPS Energy. Oprima estrella cero ahora para escuchar en español. Thank you for joining us this evening for this interactive town hall meeting so we can engage directly with you, answer your questions, and listen to your comments. We are here to connect with you tonight to get your thoughts on our preliminary discussions about our need to raise our rates. CPS Energy hasn't had a rate increase in 8 years, and we want to share the facts on the need for one, answer your questions, and get your feedback. This night is all about listening, connecting, and engaging with you, so we're going to jump right in. Joining me tonight is Paula Gold Williams, President and CEO of CPS Energy, Corey Kuczynski, Chief Financial Officer and Treasurer, and Rudy Garza, Chief Customer and Stakeholder Engagement Officer. For those of you who are joining us on your telephone, you can also watch a video simulcast of this event at cpsenergy.com/town hall or on our Facebook page. If you do have a question, you can press *3 on your phone keypad at any time, and you will be placed in line to speak with a member of our staff. After that, the next time you hear your name, you will be live on the call and you will be able to ask your question directly. If you're participating on the live stream, you can enter your name and question below the streaming player, and on Facebook, simply leave a comment. We're going to try to get to as many questions as we can tonight. And we do encourage you, everyone who has joined, to submit your questions because we do want to hear from you. Oprima estrella cero ahora para escuchar en español. We have a lot of information to cover tonight. This is a very deep topic for us, so let's get started. Paula, we're going to hear from our customers shortly and open the phone lines to them and take some online questions. But before we do that, I want to give you a quick moment to talk about how long it's been since we've had a rate increase, what we've done to avoid one up to this point, and why this year is looking like a necessity. So Paula, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. All right, Melissa, thank you so much for the introduction, and I want to thank everyone for dialing in tonight. We have not, the first thing I want to say is we have not declared a rate increase. We are in what we call a pre-rate consideration period. And basically that means that we promised at the beginning of the year and that we would look and see what happens over the summertime. Typically, the summer we can make a lot of money in the wholesale market, and the lot of money means if we can get that money from others outside of San Antonio, then we don't need to ask customers for an increase. And over the last 10 years, we've had some good wholesale market years, which have been very helpful. But there have been a lot of things that have changed since then. And maybe even before I go into the reasons why, I think I want to address some of the feedback that we have really been paying attention to. We have talked to a range of customers and look forward to talking to you tonight. And one of the primary comments I think that I hear loud and clear is, isn't a great time. This is not a great time to come forward and ask for a rate increase. Matter of fact, as difficult as the year of the pandemic has been and how challenging it has been to many of our customers who have lost jobs and had other hardships, lost family members and friends. That's been a difficult time for our entire community. And then you put on top of that Uri. And I can't say enough how sorry I am for the implications of Uri. Here, your team, your CPS Energy team, we own the fact that you trust us to do our best we can for us to provide power to you that's reliable. And we have a lot of things that we did. We did weatherize our plants, but that the extreme weather conditions of the winter made it difficult for those plants to run. Just like sometimes if you have a car, your car doesn't always start when it's really, really hot and the engine's too hot, or when the weather's too cold. These are some of the challenges that we had with big units that were supposed to supply power. We also had challenges with getting gas in. There were issues all the way to the natural gas suppliers, them trying to get the gas out of the ground, them getting it out of their inventory, getting it through their processing plant, putting them through lines, and getting them through to us. And so those challenges happened. And by far, again, we know that many of our customers had some true hardships where power was out for days. Again, I am so sorry. Every employee here is sorry. Every single employee worked as hard as they could to make sure that they got their families okay and they got back on their jobs to get that power restored. But it was still a horrific experience. We are not asking for a rate increase because of those things. Uh, we are asking for a rate increase because if we didn't have, for sure, if we didn't have Uri, we'd still be in the same predicament. We've only had one rate increase in 12 years, and the last one was 8 years ago. We understand that we should never ask you for one more dollar than we need. And so, accordingly, this group has worked really hard to save a massive amount of money, over $900 million of that, of savings over the last 10 years. And our CFO is going to tell you more about that. That said, we did go without collecting on receivables from certain customers who were under hardship for over 18 months. We were already still working on those, supporting this community, the community that we love, the community that we're from. I'm born and raised here. And so accordingly, as businesses were trying to get back on track, keep people employed, we were there for them. We were making sure that people had assistance. We started calling customers as much as we could to see what help we could supply them, that we have in our programs and what programs are available across our community. I'm so proud of our energy advisors who called over 80,000 customers, and Rudy has the clear specifics on that. So it's been a tough time. We did not have the opportunity to make more money in the wholesale market. We are not choosing this time. This time is choosing us. The numbers that we have indicate that we have a potential for a shortfall this year, and we have a much bigger shortfall next year. Now, again, we're going to get into the details of that, but what we want to do is we've done all we can in terms of using our current resources, and we picked all the low-hanging fruit. We've done all the things that we could do within our budget and means, but what we really need to do is keep investing, keep money back in the systems, keep working on reliability, keep working on reinforcing these plants so they perform better in the future. And even more importantly, fighting for this community to make sure that the errors and the issues and the systemic problems at the state level don't happen again. Maybe the last thing I'll say is one of the questions we've gotten is this all about the storm? Is this rate increase solely because of the pressures on the storm? And I would tell you it is included in our estimate of about 10%, and we're trying to whittle that down below 10%. Again, we won't ask you for one more dollar than we need. It's already in there in a very small component. 1 to 2% of that 10% is the storm. We must pay everything that is legitimate, but we are fighting for the majority of those costs that we think are not legitimate. We're fighting in the courts because we know you're too busy to fight. We're fighting collectively for San Antonio. We got $1 billion bill, and Corey will talk about it shortly. We're fighting that, and we're also trying to figure out the best way to get all customers back online, back in the normal process, and we want to disconnect no one. It is tough. We've been a community utility for 161 years, and some years are great, and some years are really, really tough. And just like you, we're in an era where things are tough. So that said, it's important that we think that we're here with you tonight, and we're going to be with you through this consideration period and beyond to answer the questions that you have. They're important. We understand your concerns. We understand that we have to do better, and we're focused on that. We're working and needing some funding so we can continue the good work and continue on getting better. So I'm just going to stop there and let us keep proceeding. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you, Paula. And you did mention resuming normal operations. And we do want to remind everybody that if you need help or have any customer service related needs, our dedicated energy advisors are on standby to assist you. All you need to do is call 210 353 2222. Again, that's 210 353 2222. And if you are currently on the phone, we just as a reminder, press 3 star 3 to get in the queue to ask a live question. We do already have a couple of online questions, and Paula also mentioned this a little bit related to winter storm, and we know that's top of mind for our customers. So we do want to use this time to explain the situation. So our first online question was from Raul Rodriguez. And thank you, Raul, for joining us again. I think you joined us on our last town hall as well. And his question is, please list the specific expenses that led to a $1 billion charge from Winter Storm Uri. And Corey, we're going to have you answer that question for us, please.
All right. Definitely appreciate the question. It's a good question. And like Paula said at the beginning, all of us at CPS continue to be sorry for the incredibly difficult situation that occurred. Directly to your question, the $1 billion that we reference is in relation to the invoiced amount that we received from gas suppliers, natural gas suppliers, and for power that we purchased during that week. Now, let's break that down a little bit. To date, we have only paid about $450 million in power and natural gas costs that are legitimate and vetted during that time frame. Now, the remaining amount that we speak about is what Paul referred to, that we're continuing to fight. We're fighting that, in the courts the best we can, continue that. But we're not just fighting for our customers, right? We're fighting for public policy. What happened during that week, shouldn't happen to CPS customers or anyone in Texas for that matter. And so in terms of, Paula addressed this in terms of how it pertains to, this conversation around the rate request. Very important for our customers to note that the $450 million that I referenced that we have paid that is legitimate has not been passed through to any customer on their bills. We have been holding that. We've paid those, but we have not passed them through. As part of our rate request, one of the things we need to do is get permission, in fact, to spread that cost out over time. What we've recommended to our Board of Trustees and continue to have conversations is that we'd like to take the amount that we have paid and spread that out over a recommended 25-year time period. And as a result of doing that, as Paula mentioned, it would be a small component part of the broader conversation we're having around a rate request. And so broadly, that is our strategy to help manage the bill impact for our customers, because at this moment in time, the only tool we have is our typical recovery method, which is 90 days or less, and we want to avoid that. So hopefully that helps break down the component parts of the cost and our plan to recover that over time.
Hey, Corey, I wanna jump in on that question again. Once again, I want to say that I've gotten some really good feedback from customers. We are, again, tonight's a great example of your commitment to give us feedback, to listen, but also for us to really be able to convey some of the answers to the questions that we've received. So from additional context, what I'd like to add is it's those costs, right? It's the cost of power and it's the cost of natural gas. What happened during the storm, in addition to every customer really being under a tremendous amount of pressure because we had reliability problems across all of Texas. Throughout our state, there were people just like us, millions of people who had challenges in terms of being able to have power constantly. So we were experiencing as a state reliability, what I call a reliability crisis. And accordingly, there's a ton of work that has happened, but a lot more work that has to happen in the future. So systemically, across the state, our state and our grid can be better, and there could be more investment, more infrastructure, renewed infrastructure, trying to make sure that we have better results under any type of crisis. But what happened in the response, I termed it an affordability tsunami. We started seeing these prices for both power and for gas, natural gas, skyrocket. And there were some boundaries for the power boundaries, but they were extreme. So typically a unit of power costs about 25 to 30 bucks, maybe 35 bucks. But they're allowed to go up when there's stress on the system. And so we saw prices go $9,000 a unit, not 30, but $9,000. And we also saw in some cases prices even higher than that. So there was a cap on the electric side. On the natural gas side, we saw it go up. And so what that is normally like $2 to $3 a unit, we saw prices of $400 and $500. Some utilities saw prices of $1,000 for 1 unit of natural gas. There was no limit at all. So there were extreme pricing that happened, and this is why we're fighting. We believe that during a declared disaster, that entities, companies, ERCOT and the natural gas suppliers should not have rushed to charge the extreme prices. And not only did they rush, they held those prices. As the power was coming back from generators across the state, as our units were coming back on, capacity was coming back on, they did not lower the charge for power, and they did not quickly lower the charge per unit for natural gas. We are fighting. Now, look, it's a tough fight, and some have said you can't win. This hasn't been done before. Well, when America was conquered, it wasn't a country before. We made it a country because we fought for principles. We believe that pricing was against public policy. It was against, because what happens is we're the intermediary for you, and nobody said, how do we protect customers from this being the norm? How do we protect customers to make sure that they're not gouged, which is against public policy at a time when we're all working to stay warm and keep everybody going through this storm and getting through it? We have won in the case, and we're still fighting. The counterparties are trying to fight us, but we have won in terms of venue because we think these cases need to be fought in San Antonio. We have won force majeure to protect us from having to overpay. We had one vendor that tried to get $300 million from us before they ever billed us because they knew that this was going to be a problem. We also had ERCOT say, why don't you float us an extra $800 million? They grossed all the pricing up instead of netting them and said, why don't you do that? We were suspicious because there were other utilities that were failing. And we don't believe that San Antonio needs to float the entire state. We've won on these premises so far, and we're still fighting. Now, look, we think it's a formidable fight because we're fighting the good cause, and there aren't a lot of people fighting for this, but we are. And again, we're fighting to make sure it doesn't, not only do we fix this issue, but that it doesn't become the default for Texas and San Antonio in the future. So that's how the $1 billion got created in the first place. There need to be better rules. There need to be not just weatherization of power plants, but weatherization at the natural gas companies. And I think that there's still going to be a tremendous fight about that because there hasn't been much pressure on them. So please, it's important. And the last thing I'll say, people would say, why would you go 25 years? Everything we do to finance, we take decades. In other words, when we build a plant, be it a solar farm or some other unit, it typically costs hundreds of millions of dollars to billions of dollars. To make it affordable, we spread those costs through financing over 25 years, and we break it down for everyone so everyone pays a piece over time and make it affordable. That's why we're looking at this strategy that is proven to us that if for whatever we have to pay, and we're only going to pay what's legitimate, that we spread it out again and we don't cause any type of bill shock for you. We've seen people across Texas, customers getting paid. I'm getting bills for $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 in 1 month. And we are fighting because we think that is the wrong answer all the way through.
Thanks, Paula. For those of you that are just joining us, this is an interactive event and we want to hear your questions. If you have a question, press *3 on your phone keypad at any time to get in the queue. A member of our staff will collect your questions and we'll answer as many as we can during this live event. Again, press *3 on your keypad at any time to get in the queue. And if you are participating online, you can submit your question below the streaming player or on Facebook, leave a message in the chat. So we are going to go to our first live caller, and this live question is from Clayton Smith. So Clayton, you are live and can ask your question.
Yes, I have two questions, well, 2 parts. I understand, what you were saying about the having to raise the fees and everything. You do that 8 years, and I understand that. And but my question is, I haven't heard much about reinforcing the grid. Haven't heard very much about that. And the other thing is, the state of Texas has, I think, a rainy day fund or something. I think I've heard the term used. And this storm should constitute using that instead of passing all the higher charges onto the customers, because that's taxpayer money that's in that fund. So help me understand why the state's not stepping up and doing that.
Yes, sir,
Thank you.
Clayton. If you don't, I'm sorry, I'm jumping in. He has such a great
You go.
question.
No, I was going to go to you anyway, Paula. You go first.
Yes, sir. If you don't mind, I'll call you Clayton, and I'm Paula. And I'm gonna jump into this one, and Rudy, you can add anything that you think I missed. So wonderful questions. There is a rainy day fund at the state level. Now, by far, let me make sure I clarify. I am by far not political, not elected, will never run. And I leave that to our elected officials who choose to serve, and our Bexar County delegation. I will have to say they're amazing. They have fought to make sure that we can look at resources like the rainy day fund. But I would tell you that I think the rainy day fund is probably somewhere around, floating anywhere from 5 to 10 million. Just this is billion. This issue alone was estimated at $16 billion. And so I think one of the things that I heard, removed, again, not my conversations, but they did consider, but depleting the rainy day fund fully was going to actually basically exhaust all of those resources. What they have done is they put together kind of a financing package, and there are some options to look at financing to see if, again, they can help different operators like CPS Energy and many others across the state have a way to finance it. Now, that is basically somewhat of the same strategy that we're using. In other words, you still got to pay those costs back. This is a cost of the infrastructure. You all own a part of the infrastructure for the grid here. So they do have that. Now, our team has evaluated that fund. Some elements look like they could be helpful, but I will tell you, this is why our credit rating is so important. Actually, we have better financing rates than we've seen at some aspects of this new fund that's available that they've created. And while we really love the optionality, it's like, why would we go get a higher interest rate fund when we could do it ourselves? So I will say that it was a discussion. There was some movement. They chose not to deplete the whole thing, which I think has some merit to it. And they're basically asking every operator to try to figure out a way to get through it. And they've given some assistance, but there wasn't enough for the whole event. That's one. The second thing, reinforcing the grid. So we do manage the grid that covers all of Bexar County, and it touches seven other counties in our area, and we manage that. So a couple of things that we're working on right now. One of the reasons why we could not rotate outages was we had a lot of folks in a lot of areas of the community and all over identified as critical. So we could not take everything down, but we're in the process of going back over every circuit now and determining, is it really critical, or could we actually, again, share the load so we wouldn't have people out for days and days and days. We're doing that. And that's at the grid level. We're also looking at microgridding. What that is when especially when we try to work with businesses, because if businesses can be self-sufficient, we can take that excess capacity and give it to customers, residential customers, to you. And so we're currently working with a couple of businesses, good size, and organizations to help them work on their resiliency plan so they can have backup generators and a way to separate themselves. So again, we can focus on everyone else. That is a process that we're working on. And that also includes SAWS, our sister agency. We're working on a plan there so they can ultimately be able to improve the grid's performance by microgridding. At the plants, we went through and we were doing work around what we did. Basically, we put insulation around exposed lines for water and exhaust. And it was so cold for so long. The way that we would typically insulate those lines, we had water seepage, we had frozen lines, and that's what in some cases took our plants down. Well, now we're reevaluating and stepping up the quality around all that for the insulation that we do, focusing on improving the heating coiling around those lines. And we purchased some portable heaters. We use portable heaters around those external lines during the storm, but we're going to increase the number of portable heaters that we have. We're also, again, looking at how do we shorten the time that we take to take out and down major maintenance. We had one plant out on planned regular maintenance, and now we're going to make sure in the winter time frame, particularly in the January, February timeframe, that we're not going to have any planned maintenance. So relative to the grid and the generation that is actually powering the grid, we are doing as many low-hanging things that we could do within our current resources. Now, we ultimately are also looking at how can we improve and replace some of the power plants that we have, and that's been an initiative that's going on for a very long time, and we're working on that. There's a little bit of cost inside of the rate increase, so we can plan for that. And then we've got longer term aspects of it that we want to improve, both the technical grid and the systems that we use to operate those. So Clayton, I hope that was somewhat helpful, and we're going to continue to put more information out on our website. And Rudy, did I miss anything?
Well, I'll just add that we really appreciate the partnership with our state delegation here in San Antonio, Senator Menendez, Senator Campbell, all the local state reps here. Really, we're working with us to try to find solutions at the state level. There were proposals that ultimately didn't make it into law that would have taken the rainy day fund and done some things with it to help provide solutions for the grid resulting from the storm. But again, we continue to make sure we're in contact with our legislators right now. There is funding that's coming down from the federal government that the state will be appropriating, and we have asked for some of that funding to help offset some of the past due balances from our customers, and we're working with our city and county partners on that. So I do think, even though it's not rainy day funding, that there is an opportunity to access some funding available, and we're working really hard to try to make that happen.
Thanks, Rudy and Paula. And we're going to keep the conversation going because we do have some folks in the queue. We're going to take another live call, and this question and call is from Norma Tellez. So Norma, you are live and can ask your question.
Yes, I would like to know why we are being the customer with this increase. I would like to know how much of the federal assistance and EPCOC has been accountable to pay for this instead of us. And I'd like to see.
I think we lost you there at the end, but Corey, we'll turn it over to you first.
I think Rudy was about to chime in there on some of those funds.
Yeah, well, I did want to say that we have been working really hard, not just associated with this rate case conversation, but for the last 18 months, since March of last year, we have been working to connect customers with payment assistance through various funds in the community. The city's been very helpful. County's been very helpful. There are social organizations all over town that have really stepped up, and we've been able to arrange for $38 million up to today. I think we're actually up to about $38.5 million of direct payment assistance for our customers that has helped bring down some of those past due balances. And as I said previously, we're working hard to identify as much funding available as we can so that those who are behind can get caught up. And as Melissa and I think Paula at the very beginning mentioned, no customer has to get worried about getting disconnected. All you got to do is call us, and we will work with you to work out arrangements and connect you with assistance. It's not just about what you can pay; it's also what programs you qualify for that we'd like to connect you with. I mean, we've got folks that are experts in finding every penny available to us out there in the community, at all levels of government, to help our customers with the assistance they need for utility assistance, for even rental assistance, food, medicines, all there's all kinds of funding, and we can connect you with all of that. But what it takes first is just a direct outreach to us, 210-353-2222. But Ms. Diaz, I will tell you that we're working really, really hard to ensure that we kick over every stone to find every dollar available to help assist our customers.
Thanks,
Rudy, I
Rudy.
want to chime in a bit again, because that is so important. Again, $38 million has come from our partnership with the city of San Antonio, our owner, and Bexar County. CPS Energy does not actually qualify to receive direct federal aid of this type. It typically needs to go to a state or a city or a county. But it has been a pleasure to partner with them, and they have helped us get resources. Those resources, we don't take a cut of that. That goes directly to help customers get aided. Any administrative costs in the background, we eat that. And we make sure, again, that we have also put some of our own resources. We had some funds built up. And so all together, we're working hard to get that 38 million. But we have probably over 100, maybe 120 million of customers that are having difficulty paying their bills. As we mentioned earlier, we've reached out, we've worked with our state delegation. Again, we have wonderful people that are representing our entire South Texas community, very much Bexar County, all of the greater San Antonio area. And they have been helping us put in a word to make sure that we continue to try to get those resources. Those are called ARPA funds. And I've even been reaching out, writing letters, making sure that we're available. So please call your elected official and just continue to indicate however we can work together to help every customer who needs it, and particularly those who have lost jobs and have any type of challenges. Those are the ones that we want to make those resources go to.
Thanks, Paula. We are about midway through our program, and we did want to turn to Corey really quickly, our CFO, because there is another item that we're talking about in these pre-rate conversations, and one of the critical parts of this potential rate case is our credit rating. So, Corey, we've talked about this a little bit too, but we want to make this very understandable for our customers. So, talk to us a little bit about our credit status and the value that brings to our community and customers in a way that's as much as you can understandable for everyone, and also weave in why this is a possible rate case this year so important.
Yeah, absolutely, Melissa. And I think actually Paul did a really good job talking about it early on in terms of the winter storm. But, the first thing that I like to do is kind of equate it to, personal examples. And so when we talk about our credit rating, CPS Energy, think of an individual, myself, you, whomever. And we think of the consequences of your credit score, and when we think about what it means when we go out and try and make purchases of a car or a house or something to that extent, you go in and you're gonna have to borrow some money. And so, to the extent our credit rating as an individual is higher, the benefit is you have access not only to borrow, but borrow at affordable interest rates. And that absolutely is the key takeaway there. It allows us to take that affordability and pass that benefit on back to our customers. And so we have been one of the most highest rated utilities in the country for quite a while, decades. And that has served our community well. It's enabled us to continue to borrow at very affordable rates. Now, CPS doesn't buy cars or homes, but what we do is build a lot of large infrastructure, power plants, lines, things of that nature, big ticket items. So when you're talking about tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, When you're able to save, 1% on interest or more, you're talking about millions of dollars of savings that we can pass on to our customers. And so what the customer gets is a utility whose dollar can go further and do more for them. And when you're paying your bill, you're paying for actual infrastructure. You're not paying for high interest rates. And that's the real benefit that a strong credit rating can bring to a community that has a utility that they own. Now, the reason it's important for our rate request, we have again continue to have a strong credit rating, but we were downgraded after the winter storm, to AA negative, and all the rating agencies today have us on what's called negative outlook, which means there's still risk on the horizon, and they're looking to us and our community in terms of what our strategy and our plan is, and all the discussions we're having right now and today. This is part of what they're looking at. So that's why rate request is going to be important, not just to go towards all the infrastructure that we've been talking about going towards. There's, as Paula mentioned, large investments into reliability and resiliency. Almost half of our capital budget is, for those types of projects that will go, again, to hardening our grid. But the long of it is, it's not just for those investments. It's to ensure that our financial statements and our financial health continues to remain strong. So we believe that you can have the investment in the infrastructure and have financial health. Those two items can coexist. So hopefully that gives a little context, Melissa.
Thank you. We're going to go to a poll question next. And part of this phase for us is getting feedback to better serve you. So in terms of the poll question, we're going to ask you on your phone, you can vote by pressing the corresponding number on your keypad. And if you are online, you can vote by selecting your response below the streaming player. So our poll question for tonight is, we want to get a better feel for whether we have listened to your questions and if we're presenting the facts clearly. This will help us better serve you and get you the information you need. And again, you will use your phone to submit your response to the poll. So the question is, how helpful has this town hall been for your understanding of why we need a rate increase this year? Again, the question is, how helpful has this town hall been for your understanding of why we need a rate increase this year? You're going to press 1 for very helpful, press 2 for somewhat helpful, press 3 for somewhat unhelpful, or press 4 for not helpful at all. And again, those choices are press 1 for very helpful, press 2 for somewhat helpful, press 3 for somewhat unhelpful, or press 4 for not helpful at all. And we'll come back to those poll results a little later. Right now, we're going to go back to your questions. But first, I want to provide 2 quick reminders if you're just joining us. This is an interactive event and we want to hear your questions. So if you are on the phone, press *3 on your keypad at any time to get in the queue to ask a question. A member of our staff will collect your questions and we'll answer as many as we can during this live event. Again, press *3 on your keypad at any time to get in the queue. And if you're participating online, you can submit your questions below the streaming player. Also, as a reminder, we want everyone to know that our dedicated energy advisors on standby to assist you at 210-353-2222. Again, that's 210-353-2222. If you need customer assistance or need help with your overdue bill, it's not too late to get put on a payment plan to avoid disconnection. So next we'll hear from another live caller, and this next live caller is Linda Herrera. Linda, you are live on the line. Linda?
Yes. My question is, why don't they try to recover the money from ERCOT? The power outage was not due to the customer. It was due to ERCOT. That was their mistake.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks, Linda.
Yes, yes, ma'am. Wonderful question. That's what we're fighting for. We don't believe that the customer that you, ma'am, did anything wrong. That any customer in Texas, let alone San Antonio. San Antonio is the community that we love and serve, and we agree. That said, ERCOT made some systemic problems and errors in their decision making. I'm not discounting the fact that they're like air traffic controllers. They try to make sure that there's movement of power from those who can generate it to you and everyone else who needs it. But there were errors and problems. And so there wasn't a decline in pricing. The pricing wasn't, it was too extreme, to your point. And basically, they even admitted shortly after the storm that, yeah, they made some errors, but it's too late to fix it. That's the comment. Too late. Our time frame to fix it was on our rules for in about 30 days. We had to fix it in 30 days, but because we were so busy answering questions and doing those things, we can't fix it now. It's too late, or that it's too big. And I think there's a lot of just consensus that people want to move on. But again, we're fighting because we don't think customers should pay those high prices that were sustained for way too long. And that's what the lawsuit is about. Now I'm going to go ahead and throw a question out that we get, and people would say, "Boy, you're going to spend a lot of money on this lawsuit." And I think for this current year, we're going to spend at least $10 million. But $10 million to save hundreds of millions of dollars, we think is worth it, because every single, $100 million out of everyone's pocket that doesn't need to get paid when it could be just pennies. That's why we're fighting for those things. So thank you, ma'am. Great question. You're right. And we're going to keep fighting to work and make sure that only that it doesn't happen, that we fix it this time and that it doesn't happen again.
Thanks, Paula. So some of you may be wondering what our next steps are if we decide to pursue a rate increase this year. And to walk us through that process, I want to introduce Rudy Garza, our Chief Customer and Stakeholder Engagement Officer at CPS Energy. Rudy?
Well, thank you, Melissa. And I want to just reiterate that, part of why we're here tonight is to ensure that we're having a direct communication and opening up a direct line of communication with our community about the need. The process will be a public one. Our board that is made up of excellent community volunteers, made up of 4 representatives of 4 geographic quadrants. Cities, our service area is broken up into quadrants. We've got 4 representatives, and then the mayor is the representative from the city council, who is obviously our owner. They will weigh into our case for why we need more resources. And then we have a number of citizen groups that provide us with advice and input and perspective that doesn't necessarily always reflect that of what we think the situation might look like. We have a rate advisory committee that was recently appointed earlier this year for this specific purpose, quite frankly, and other things. But certainly when CPS Energy is asking for rate consideration, our rate advisory committee that is led by our chair, Reed Williams, vice chair, Eloisa Portillo Morales, who are working very, very hard. They're meeting every other week, getting into some very detailed content to try to understand our business and make recommendations to the board on what they see. And so we have our rate advisory committee. We have a long-standing citizen advisory committee led by Luisa Caso, who is our chair, and 15 other members of the community that are both appointed by council and chosen at large from the community. They will get to look at our case and weigh in and let our board know what they think. And then we've got to go out into the community to your neighborhood associations and your community groups that you volunteer at on a regular basis, and answer questions and try to help our community understand. Our job at CPS Energy is simple. It's difficult, but it's simplistic in nature. Our job is to provide electric and gas service, and to ensure that we have a healthy utility that is able to meet the expectations of our community. And part of that is a fiduciary responsibility to talk to our community when we believe there's a gap that's going to prevent us from doing the job that you expect of us, and to respond to things like what happened in February to ensure our system is resilient. And we're going to go out in the community and we're going to make that case. And ultimately, city council and our board will determine whether or not they agree with the reasonings and the amount and all the things that we have to put into the effort that goes into this process. But we're ready to get that going. We're ready to have these type of conversations, and we'll be doing that over the next several months. And ensuring that our community understands the job that we're trying to do for you each and every day.
Thanks, Rudy. And you mentioned our rate advisory committee, and I just want to remind everyone that we do have the recorded live streams of all of those meetings on our website at cpsenergy.com, including some supporting material. So a lot of great background material on what the committee themselves are hearing from our internal experts and external experts as well. So we do have the poll results, and I will share those with everyone. And again, this is helpful for us in communicating with you and getting your feedback. So I'm going to read the results as I'm squinting to look. 36% have said that this town hall has been very helpful. 29% have said somewhat helpful. 16% have said somewhat unhelpful, and 19% have said not helpful at all. So again, we want to thank you for that feedback, as that's going to continue to help us improve how we are communicating with you and listening to you and getting you the information that you need as our customers. We are going to go to the final call for the night, and this one comes from Francis. So Francis, you are live with CPS Energy.
Good evening. I just have a real
Go ahead,
simple
Francis.
question. How are you?
Okay.
Thank you for allowing me to take part, and thank you for the great work you do for us. I just have
Thanks.
a question to ask, and it has to do with the expenditures that you're basically discussing tonight. Is there any plan implemented or in the works for a cyber attack such as the one that occurred in the Houston area with the Colonial Pipeline? Do we have anything like that in place? Because it could happen, and I want to know that we are secured and we won't have to be without electricity again, like we did this past winter. And that was my question, and thank you for allowing me to take part.
I
Great
guess
question.
I'll jump in. Yeah, it's a great question, actually, Francis. The short answer is yes. We do have a plan. I think one thing I want to highlight, typically when we do these sessions, we actually also survey about what's the most valuable thing that you want us to focus on. And so that includes reliability, right? We don't want what happened in February of 2021 to be repeated. We want reliable systems. We want resilient systems. We want, if they go down, they come back as quickly as possible. We want to make sure that they're safe. We want to make sure affordability is important, and that's why we know so many customers are concerned at every single part of our community about affordability. So nobody again wants to pay one more penny than they have to. So that's one of our value pillars. Environmental responsibility is a huge one. More and more we're thinking about as we replace the units that we have and change how we generate power. Are we doing it in the cleanest, most effective way? And then a major value pillar, the sixth one, is security. And we actually, more than 5 years ago, came up with this concept that we knew that there were going to be challenges for utility. To your point, Francis, we have to worry about cyber attacks, and then we have to worry about physical attacks on infrastructure. Sometimes people will destroy our infrastructure for one reason or another. And so we have a whole team called the Integrated Security Team. That team spends so much time in terms of making sure that our systems, our firewalls, our patches, all of those things are up to date. They also have partnerships with law enforcement at the local, state, and federal levels. They study all of those things that you read in the paper, and they make sure, again, that they have all the remedies, and they look for ways to, more importantly, prevent the implications that occur. We pay attention to threats and issues that are in the paper. like Colonial Pipeline, but we also look at every single cyber attack out there. There's sometimes they're on schools, school districts, businesses, all of those things. We also work with our insurance carrier that gives us some best case information. And again, it's really where we're putting incrementally more resources, more talent. We're local. We have a local, rich place here, but UTSA puts out a lot of candidates out of their cyber program. The military, we're fortunate to have an alliance with the military. And also, we employ veterans here that quite a few of them have experience with both cybersecurity programs and business continuity. And the last thing I'll add is there have been a lot of also good work between the city of San Antonio, SAWS, and us. We've had multiple exercises since the storm to practice on how do we respond to maintain our systems, and how do we better communicate, creating better systems of communication so we can better serve you. So excellent question. And yes, we're focused on that as well. And we're doing a lot of those things today, as well as looking at the improvements in the systems that need to happen going forward.
And Paul, I would just chime in too. Great explanation, and just to tie back. I mean, that's a key driver that we've been speaking about in terms of our rate request. Is around that investment in technology and cybersecurity, and those are the things we'll talk about, in more detail as we go out into the community and talk about those.
Thanks, Corey and Paula, and thanks again, everyone, for those questions. We are coming to the end of our live event this evening, and we want to thank you for joining us for this important conversation. If you weren't able to get your question asked this evening, you can leave a voicemail after the event by simply staying on the call when we end, and you'll be transferred into our private voicemail system. You can also send us an email at feedback@cpsenergy.com. Also, very important reminder, if you need billing or customer assistance, or if you know somebody that does need help, please call us at 210-353-2222. Our energy advisors are always here to help. And as Rudy mentioned earlier, no one needs to get disconnected. Please just give us a call. And before we leave, I'm going to turn it over to Paula for some closing thoughts. Paula?
Very good. A couple of things I would say. Hey, we would love to have a session where our scores were higher. We appreciate those of you who thought that we communicated well, but we also respect that you said we didn't communicate as well as we could. So we're going to go back, look at that feedback again. If you want to leave us a message in the voicemail and give us some suggestions on how better we can communicate, we appreciate that very, very much, because it helps us. We live with this all the time. This is a 24/7, 365 business. And again, what we really want to do, though, is be better at serving you and better at communicating. I'm going to throw in one extra question, and I'll also talk about it up the next survey that I didn't see tonight, but I'm sure is out there somewhere. One of the questions is, golly, why is it that we have this rate increase and the employees, particularly the executives, there they are getting pay increases, and they're getting incentive pay. People call it bonuses. We don't have bonuses. There are incentives, or have historically been incentives for performance. I will tell you that the company has not received incentive pay since 2019. When we saw the pandemic coming in early 2020, I got together with the senior team, talked to our employees, and all our employees understood and supported the fact that we didn't need to be getting payment of an incentive payment in 2020. It was just too difficult of a year. And we also suspended those. There were no payments for incentives this year. Our team also, there were no raises this year. That is from every executive and even our frontline. And I want to put a special shout out to our union skilled craft employees and the general wage increase. And so there haven't been any payments. We understand that we have good jobs, and we serve this community. Our whole thing is to serve. And what we want to do is help every single customer get back on their feet. Again, nobody has to be disconnected. Please give us a call. We're not the same as SAWS. SAWS has had 10 rate increases for the major work that they have done. They have worked on providing water for the foreseeable decades. And so that has happened. But for us, we have a different journey. It is like it is one company doing one thing and one doing the other. It's like trying to combine the Spurs and trying to combine the Dallas Cowboys. Go Cowboys! They won this past week. But that said, from that standpoint, we ultimately understand again that we are trying to be prudent. No, we haven't had raises in over a year. We haven't had incentives since 2019, when we understand that it's important for us to use our resources to help San Antonio. So thank you for joining us tonight. We're going to cut out a little earlier. We are going to continue this series. Please, please, please know that we appreciate those of you who could join us. Please spread the word. Please continue to give us feedback. We understand this is an important and tough conversation, but we're here to serve you. And everything that we can do, we will do. And the additional funding that we think we ultimately will be looking for and potentially launch a new process in the next 30 days will all be intended for us to do good work for you. Thank you so much. I want to say thanks to Clayton and to Norma and to Linda and Francis. Thank you for choosing to make sure that we have good questions, good quality information. And again, we'll continue to do our best to be positive. I also want to thank our ASL interpreter, Kendall. Thank you tonight for translating for us. And Armando, thank you so much for translating in Spanish. So please have a wonderful night. It's dark here in the building. I'm saving energy. But please be safe. Have a good evening, and we'll be back.